everyone. Thanks for being here on this sunny, beautiful March spring break day. And I think we need to do roll call. I think Virginia was going to join us for an introduction, but we do not unless...
We do not have Virginia unless that is Virginia online.
Okay.
I do not believe
We
so.
have not been able to confirm. So let's do a roll call. And Felisa, start with you.
Lisa Spinelli, BEUA.
Mary Morgan, BUEA.
Dee Del Rosa, Executive Director and ESD Liaison.
Holly Warren, ESD staff.
Cheryl Gilliland, Deputy Controller, City Controller's Office.
Kate Rosenberger, BUEA.
Michael Hobert, BUEA.
Phil Emerson, BUEA.
Heather Robinson, BUEA.
And Alex Pratt, Legal.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so reports from officers. I think, Cheryl, you're up with financial reports.
Oh, minutes.
Oh, sorry, skipped right over the minutes. Minutes first. All right. Did everyone have a chance to look over minutes from last time? We had a lot of approvals. We had selection of officers. Felisa, you were not here. You were elected to be our vice chair. You missed a meeting, and you were elected to be vice chair. That's what happened. So congratulations.
That sounds about normal. Thank you.
So any comments, corrections on minutes from last time? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Michael, a second.
Second.
Phil? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now financial reports. Cheryl, you're up.
Okay, so we're going to look at, first of all, the profit and loss statement for the month of December 2023. So the income that was generated during the month of December was $23,916.58. This amount is derived from $15,575.13 in AIEZ fees refunded. We have another $8,211.03 in banking interest, $2.84 from RRF loan late fees, and $117.58 from RRF loan interest. On the expense side, we expended $86,905 during the month of December. These expenses came from $1,350 paid for our accounting service to submit taxes for 2022. In addition, we gave out a $3,750 grant in the Zone Arts Grant category to Bloomington Creative Glass. Overall, you're going to see that it's only $250 listed because I did some cleanup. We had different outstanding checks from, I think they've been out there a couple of years. So we voided a $3,500 check from several years ago. So you're only seeing a $250 difference there. We also paid out $85,000 in professional fees category, and that was really 2022 and 2023 payment to ESD for administrative services. It's a yearly expense, and we didn't get that taken care of in 2022, so we're catching up. We also gave out a $695 check to, $1,000 check to Wonder Lab for DEI training scholarships in the scholarships category. And there again, we had another voided check of $695 for cleanup. So you're going to see only $305 expended for that month. We had interest in the amount of, for CDs in the amount of $266.14. So your net income, which is income minus expense, for the month of December is a negative $62,722.28.
Just a note, it looks like in the paper copy, you're missing the second page of the detail.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, it's in
So
the,
sorry.
it's on the, digital file, but it just didn't make it, so, because I was
Okay.
looking for that
Oh,
85,000.
I have a printed copy. Do you need it? Of both.
I do not, I didn't know, I just want to make,
Okay,
because I'm
I'll
looking
amend
at
that in
it,
the
I'm looking
packet.
at it online here, so it is there, but I noticed that we don't have the detail for the second page of the
The budget.
P&L.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
It's not right
just
here.
if others looking at the hard copy are wondering what other expenses are.
So it's there electronically, just
It
not
is,
on the paper.
Yeah, just not
Okay.
on the
So
paper,
you're
so
good.
just
Okay, so we'll look at the balance sheet for December. Your total checking and savings balance for, as of December 31st, was $2,880,498.12. That comes from 4 different banking institutions. First Financial balance is $2,353,362.38. German American is $217,765.13. IU Credit Union is $204,429.34. People's State Bank is $104,941.27. Other assets combined, long-term notes receivable is in the amount of $188,746.05. So your combined total assets for, at the end of December came to $3,069,244.17. Okay. So now if you look at your profit and loss, budget versus actual highlights, so this goes for the entire year. You will see that $391,726.60 of income has been received since January 1st, which is 67.08% of your budget, which was $584,004. On the expense side, you expended 52.21% of your budget throughout the year, which totaled $272,791.99. If you were to look at the large categories, you'll see that grants, miscellaneous was fully expended at $45,000. Zone Arts grants ended up being overspent by $7,800. Zone Improvement grants only expended 9.54% of the budget, which came to $14,313.90. If you pull all of those grants together, 27.53% of your $401,750 was expended, which amounts to $110,613.90. If you look at the professional fees, you're going to see that was overexpended due to paying the 22 expenditures in 23. The scholarships category, you expended $14,370.42 out of your $40,000 budget, which is 35.93%. So at the end of the 2023, yeah, you did, overall, you didn't expend all of your budget, and you know, there was reasons for that, and you know, I think you have a better budget going forward. so I think you well for the year. I do not have the January financials because of the fact that we are going to, we're upgrading to the online version, and I'm working with IT to get ordered and installed. And then in the past, no one's been, because it's on, and they're checking on the price for me right now. So we'll get that installed, and I'll get everything updated and get the budget entered. And we'll go forward from there.
All right,
So
great.
last month, I think I said I would have January, and I forgot that we were doing this upgrade, so I apologize.
No worries. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Yep. And just so that you know, I mean, January is we have very little activity in January, so, I mean, and you look at the budget, and it's like, oh, you haven't spent anything. It's only January, so, at that point in time, so.
All right, well, we'll look for the newly upgraded reports next time, so thank you for that. Were there any questions on the financial reports? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the December 2023 financial statements?
Motion to approve.
Lisa?
Second.
Second, Mary. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, I think we're going to welcome a new committee member.
And I apologize for missing the last time. I had to be with a family member who had a minor medical procedure, so, that can take all day, but we're good now. So I'm Virginia Gatheri. I am the founder and owner of Popcorn Kernels and Twist. I'm also a full-time faculty member in the School of Public Health. I'm a teaching faculty, so I'm a senior lecturer, so my students call me Dr. G. So all
And you're not
things-
busy at all, so.
Oh my
just-
God. I'm glad it's spring break, I'm glad it's spring break, but I'm happy to be here, and, just as a small business owner, I definitely hope that I can learn from and offer some, insight, and I think it's important for people that are actually in business in the town to be able to kind of come together and have conversation, and hopefully those good things can extend outward. So, just happy to be here.
Well,
Thank you.
Happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, great. So, director's report.
Yeah. So you will notice in the packet, or the addendum to the packet that I've given you. Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you, yeah. We're looking at that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So I think it's the very back of the hard copy addendum, but it is placed probably correctly in the digital form. It's a page that kind of is an informational page about the ESID, the Enterprise Zone Investment Deduction, kind of what it does, what qualifies and what not. So the general, and the reason we're doing this right now is because this is the time where I start sending the invoices out to the businesses that are involved in this program so that we can get the funding to pay for all the things that we like to do. So essentially what this is, it's very similar in some ways to a tax abatement in that it is a tax deduction. However, 20% of the deduction comes to us. So that 20% from all of the different businesses of that deduction is how we get the funding to be able to do grants, to pay staff, and those sorts of things. Each business that applies for this, they have to have a qualifying investment, and the list is here, and I'll just read it out loud for anybody who happens to be listening. So qualifying investments are the purchase of a building, the purchase of new manufacturing or production equipment, costs associated with repairing, rehabilitating, or modernizing an existing building and related improvements, on-site infrastructure improvements, the construction of a new building, and costs associated with retooling existing machinery. And it's a pretty simple process. You submit your EZBR to register the investment with the BUEA. You report the investment to the Monroe County Auditor's Office, and then you pay the annual participation fee of 20%, which is of the business total tax savings from the incentive. So yeah, pretty simple process. Each EZID lasts over 10 years. So we do have some coming up, and if you would like a report on that, just like a very preliminary sort of report on that, I can totally get that to all of you guys. But I will, once I get all of the forms back and all of the fees and all of that, I do want to prepare a report for you guys so you can see exactly what's going on with each business, kind of where we stand as far as like trying to recruit business and see who could benefit from this as well. So that's kind of long and short of it. I did a one-pager, so it's real simple and not too much information. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have one question. Right now, how many businesses are enrolled in the program?
Currently, I believe it's 28 businesses I'm dealing with right now. I might be a little bit off on that because I've looked at several spreadsheets this morning, but I'm pretty sure that the one I was looking at was 28. I think that there are 4 or 5 that will no longer be, I think this is their last year for their deduction and the fee payment or the participation fee. Mm-hmm. So that's something to look at. And then with Catalent being acquired by Novo Nordisk, that actually ends, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to work pretty hard to go to Novo Nordisk and see what they're doing and see if we can't get them on board for a deduction from the enterprise zone. So, yeah. Virginia?
So my question, is there a time frame on the improvements? Let's say a business learns about this and they made improvements 5 years ago. Is there a retro?
That is really funny because I was trying to find that today.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out if it works retroactively or not. So as I was building this together, I was trying to figure out that. So once I find that information out, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so there's that part. And then the other thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys is kind of the building blocks of our strategic plan. For those of you who weren't here at the end of last year, we had to renew the BUEZ. So every 5 years now, and I can get into the minutia of state laws and all of that if you really want aside from here, but essentially every 5 years we can renew the enterprise zone. So I went in front of council, did that, and the plan right now is to take this year and next to gather information and data to create a strategic plan for how we spend our money and where we spend it. We do a lot of good with the arts grants, with the smaller grants, like the micro grants that we give out to people, which is great. Can we do more? Can we put them in different places? Can we do larger sums of money in different places? So some of the preliminary work that's going on right now, Matthew, who is my O'Neill Fellow and has the title of data analyst right now for our department, he is putting together a project with GIS, which is our mapping systems, and taking a list of variables, like, home ownership, education, things like that. Pretty basic sort of demographic information, and also some kind of like deeper, more pointed points, data points as well, and laying it over our map and seeing where these disparities are kind of happening. When we kind of look at the overall disparity in Bloomington, there are these things called Gini scores, which happens through the census. So if you go to like census.com, I can't remember, I think it's uscensus.com, each city, county, and state are given like Gini scores, which basically is the wealth gap. Like, how large is the wealth gap? When you look at the number, it's like 0 is being the most equitable and 0.5 is the least equitable. Now, we're talking about gaps of wealth, not amounts of money. So if you have a score of 0, like in, I don't know, someplace in Illinois, like a city in Illinois, and it's 0, that can mean that everybody's rich, or it can mean every single person is poor. So when we were looking at our score is, we are, I think it was less equitable than every single county in the state of Alabama. So, but what does that mean? Are there counties that are totally poor and totally rich? And because they're at that level, our disparity looks like it's worse. So when we're kind of looking at these things, we have to really factor in a lot of different data points. Like, we have to think about college towns and compare ourselves to college towns. Racial demographics, economic demographics, all of those different things to like really have good comparisons. And so that's kind of what Matthew's doing right now, is like gathering all this information so we can have a good assessment as to what we're doing as far as like just our zone. So in combination with that, while Matthew's doing that part, I'm working with a software designer who has a software called Grant Cycle. And essentially it does kind of like the back end of the whole grant process, but it can do a lot more. And she's been working on a pilot where we analyze all of these grants, where the money is actually going, and how does it work for a municipality or whatever. So to kind of like pilot this, we're trying to work with the BUEZ because it's, you good? Okay. Because it's a smaller area and it's a little bit more pointed, and we have some specific reporting. Like when we give like $45,000 to Ivy Tech, they send us a report of like how that's being used, and it's like, oh, we served 47 different business owners in the BUEA, and then we served this many business owners outside of the BUEA. So taking that information, laying it over, seeing how these grants are being used, who is using the money the best, who's most effective, and then also looking at other organizations that might be able to use more money more effectively as well. So that's kind of what we're doing right now with the strategic plan. I know that was kind of a lot and a little scattered, but right now it's just really kind of just putting all the parts and the information together to figure out what do we do, how do we do it, and how do we do it to the best of our abilities. So that is what I have on that.
Can you tell us, and you may have already said that, I missed it, the timeline for developing the strategic plan?
So what I'm hoping is that within this year we will have the data gathered, and then the majority of 2025 will be putting together the plan, and then the implementation will be a 3-year implementation up into the next renewal.
Gotcha.
Well, I applaud the work for gathering data and information. I think we can.
That's Matthew. He's amazing.
Well, kudos to Matthew for his work on that. I think that information and data will always help us as a board make better informed decisions, and so I think that this sounds like certainly a worthwhile project that will help us understand more about the impact in the zone and how we might be able to better, disperse funds that can make even a broader impact in areas where maybe they're not being served right now. So, yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and thanks for the education pieces. I think this will be helpful, especially with some new board members and so forth. So keep that coming for us. We appreciate it a lot.
For sure.
All right, so let's see, I lost sight of, and just your sample, I can't go without saying your cheeky
nice.
sample of Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. Well done. well done, but.
You are welcome.
But that is a helpful example of understanding what the deduction is, the percentage of that is allocated, or participation fee rather, for BUEA. And then if they're in a TIF district, a participation fee for the RDC. So I think these are helpful, and it helps us as a board understand where the money's coming from, where income is coming from us.
And one thing about the TIF that I don't think I put in the information, so when businesses do apply for this, they can't get a deduction for real estate within the TIF. They can get a deduction for personal property. The RDC fee on there, that's kind of like a retroactive thing. So like there were some businesses that were already like in there before it was declared, and like this is, but moving forward, that doesn't usually happen unless it's a special exception.
Okay.
And that has to go before the board and before, I think it goes before the board. It might go before the EDC, but it definitely goes before council, so.
Okay. All right, so,
Then it's good to leave it in there, just in case.
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay, great.
It sounds like Matthew is working in this direction, but one of the challenges, I think, will be 5 years from now. And what outcomes might we have that can measure whether we're making a difference? And is it possible to measure a difference in 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
So anything we can do to encourage him to think further out in terms of what kind of outcomes-based
Sure.
research might be done.
Well, the great thing about his project is that it's a lasting thing. Like once we have that map built, it's just a matter of putting in data on a regular basis. You know, it's about keeping up on it. So, you know, once we can have, I think that once that there's some hard data that's being put into these models, we can start creating like speculative models and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a really good point. And it's something that I hope is lasting, that, you know, this board does continue to do its good work, and eventually, you know, once the good work is done here, we reshape the BUEA or the BUEZ, and then are able to work on another area of the city. Because that's the point of the program. And I think that we do have, I think we have one of the best programs in the state. You know, we do a lot of work. I think that we could do a ton more. But, you know, that's a manpower issue.
Right.
So, you know, and hopefully that'll be rectified, you know, in the coming years. But yeah, I think that being able to have tools for information is kind of the basis of any type of success, and we just need more information.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, and we'll look forward to hearing about the project and how it's going, and then we will certainly be able to use the information coming from it to make better informed decisions and help develop strategic plan out of that. So, all right, new business. Looks like RRF and COVID loans.
Yeah, I feel like all of that could have been thrown under new business, because I'm just going to keep on talking.
That's you keep on going. Keep on going.
So I have been working with the controller's office and kind of doing a deep dive into data gathering for these RRF loans and kind of cleaning up the records. It has been, because it's not just the BUEA loans, it's also the food and beverage loans, and there are a lot of them. So I have a massive document that I didn't want to burden you with, so I gave you the most important part, which are the loans that we are working with right now, and where they stand. When I looked at these early last week, I was panicking because I thought they were all behind. However, now that I've looked at it and looked at all the schedules, it's actually only 5 different loans that we have that are behind, which is a huge relief. Many people have caught up. Also, I know that some of them, if you look at them and they say January 1st of 2024, when I started doing this, this was the end of February, or maybe the second to last week of February. So there are probably payments that have come in that I have not taken into account. This is why I kept them in green. there are many people who were not paying these and caught up, and it's great, and I really appreciate that. There are several people who are just paying something, and that is also great. It doesn't matter how much, as long as you're paying something, it's going to be useful in the end. It shows good faith on the loan. So the update is essentially right now the controller's office and I are trying to figure out the timeline, because there are some that will be going to collections. There are some people who just haven't paid anything. We've tried to get a hold of them and all these sorts of things. I am doing my last reach out to everybody before the controller's office goes forward with a timeline and turning things over to collections. I think that, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that it's best that the BUEA and the controller's office stay on the same page as far as like how these are handled, just for equity. I do think that there may be some avenues of of partial forgiveness for some of these, but like I said, it's going to take a lot more. It's just going to take a lot more research into looking at this to make sure that it is equitable for everyone. There are people who have paid off all of these loans, and they paid them off a long time ago, and I completely understand that, you know, it doesn't seem fair, but also I also feel that if you've paid the loan within 6 months, maybe you didn't need the loan in the first place. So we really need to take care of our businesses, and I really think that debt relief is one of the easiest and quickest ways of helping businesses. But you know, the street goes both ways, and there has to be some communication and making sure that we're being fair to everyone who's done this program. So that's kind of all I really have at this point until I can talk with Controller McClellan a bit more about this.
I think you mentioned this at the last meeting. Are some of the businesses that are in red out of business now?
There are, at least, so from the last time I spoke to them to this point in time, I do believe that some of them have finally dissolved. And a lot of this, and I feel that some of these just have not turned in their paperwork, like their state paperwork, that the business has dissolved, which would be just much easier to just knock some of these off of the list. So the last round of me reaching out, I did have a few businesses, and not in BUEA, but the FAB loans, who sent paperwork that said, I've dissolved my company, this is all the paperwork, and it's like, okay, we know that goes over here in this category. So yeah, it's really about communication. If your business is done, you are required to dissolve the business tax-wise. So just send me that information so I know to not bother you anymore.
So are we thinking that any business that is completely dissolved, I mean, are we going to discharge this? I mean, we're going to take the loss on the loan, or is that still a potential for collection? I know you want to align, and just in my opinion, I think aligning with what the city's doing on the food and beverage loans makes sense for us to be in alignment for the BUEA loans. So I think that makes sense, and maybe you don't know the answer yet, but you know, so if there are 2 or 3 that are completely out of business, I don't know that there's any potential even at collections to collect on that. Are we really going to exhaust that kind of effort, or are we simply just going to take the loss on the loan? And then those that are still in business that haven't paid, is that potentially a collections situation? Just, you know, kind of weighing that out. I mean, I think it's you know, apparent that some of these loans just simply aren't going to be repaid, maybe a couple of them here, 2 or 3, and so we need to probably determine how to get those off.
Yeah, and I'll consult the controller about it as to what the city decides to do with some of like I said, all of the dissolved companies are actually FAB loans. So I will have to see what, and I don't know if you can speak to this at all, Cheryl, at this point,
No,
what might,
there's not been any updates.
yeah, as to what the controller would like to decide on that.
Okay.
And then as far as these loans go, you know, the last two have made payments, especially 104 on the list. Like, the last payment was in December of 2023. So what's happened since then that there hasn't been a payment? And as well as 103, the last payment was in October of 2023. Okay, that wasn't that long ago, and there was a considerable catch up on that earlier in the year. So what's going on with all of that? So specifically those two, I would like to contact them and talk to them, and they've been responsive in the past. I want to know why they're not responsive now. And the three above that, I have reached out. I have tried to get some information, and it's been difficult, to say the least. So
Could you tell me what the interest rate was for those loans?
2%.
2%? Okay. And then the other thing, I see that there's late fees associated with late payments, I assume?
Yes.
Is it something to where maybe these people have gotten so far behind, they're afraid of these late fees and shackling those
Well, the
and
late
covering those so that maybe
late-
they don't feel so far
yeah.
behind?
So the late fee is 5% of the payment.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly steep,
Yeah.
but also if you know you're trying to catch up, we've been pretty lenient.
Right.
Like if you're like, I want to catch up right now, we've been pretty lenient about waiving the late fees on these. So I
Well,
mean,
like, Business 100 is a year and a half behind. That's 18, and 5% of that's hundreds of dollars in late fees.
yeah.
Could we possibly catch them up in their late fee and have them start paying again because they may be afraid of their late fee? Is that possibly stopping them from payment?
I don't know if it's possibly stopping them from payment, because I do feel that the late fees are not that steep.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's a little shocking like how small the late fees are, because I feel that late fees are usually a little bit, they're meant to hurt, so you don't pay late. So I mean, that's something that could be offered, but I don't know if it's gonna really be a motivator.
All right. Well, thank you, Dee, for keeping us up to date on this. I think this sheet is really helpful, and it gives us a good picture of just kind of what we're kind of looking at with some of these loans, and we should have an expectation that potentially 1 to 3 of these loans could just simply need to be, you know, discharged and just get off the balance sheet here. So, all right. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see, is there one other item? No? Was there any? No. Oh, wait a minute. The partial, yes, the CDFI. Yep.
So, John Zodi and I met last week to talk about maybe CDFI carrying over some of these loans to not necessarily them, but a CDFI that is connected to CDFI Friendly, which would be great because they can give technical assistance and things like that like we just, as the city, don't have the bandwidth to provide to these borrowers. I think that, John, forgive me if I'm misquoting, I think he said that he could purchase up to $250,000 worth of loans, which is essentially all of the BUA loans.
All of the BUA.
Which I'm not gonna lie, you guys, it would be great not to have to be servicing loans. It takes a special person to get into that kind of business, and I am not that special. So there's a lot that kind of has to go on there to figure that out, but that is something that we are discussing. And I think it's beneficial to the borrower. It's so much more helpful than me just calling and saying, hey, you owe me money. It's more like, hey, you owe this money, but let's figure something out.
Right.
And it gives them a lot of different tools. So So yeah, so that's kind of what's going on right there. Once I have more details, I'll let you all know.
I think that's a good plan to shift some of these loans to an organization that actually really works in the space of non-traditional loans at lower rates like that for, small businesses and different things. And so I think any opportunity for that, I think, makes a lot of sense, because in the long run, it's really going to be more beneficial for the businesses that have these loans. So I think that sounds like a good plan. So keep us up to date. All right. There's nothing under unfinished business. Any comments from the group? Anything we're missing? If not, we can adjourn the meeting early on a beautiful sunny day. All right.